Just curious what your thoughts on that are.
Well, I was really delusional because I actually didn't think it would be overturned. I'm very, very sad, and I'm a little pissed off because I spent a lot of time in my youth fighting for this right, number one. And I experienced it when it wasn't legal, and I experienced when it was legal. I personally experienced needing an abortion. If I hadn't been able to get help, my entire life would not have been able to be what I wanted my life. I wanted to discover my life. I did not believe I was ready to be a mother at 20. And I don't think women should be punished for their biology or their desire or ineffective birth control or a mistake or a gross injustice to their bodies or a crime against their bodies. And I thought this was a done issue. I thought it was done. The initial feeling is shock, then comes rage, then comes sorrow for all the lives that are going to be so destroyed. And it's targeting poor women of color, poor white women, anybody poor, anybody that can't hop on a plane and go to a sane friggin' state. And I can't imagine what it's like if you're in a back alley or if you're trying to induce an abortion yourself, or if you've gotten pregnant through horrific means and not just an accident.
Can you tell me a bit more about your experience?
Fortunately, the person I got pregnant with, who was not a long-term person, had a brother that was a doctor and got me in to have an abortion. I was terrified. I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to have children. I did not want my mother to know. I had a cousin that ended up I confided in, and she told my mother, and I lied about it. I mean, the shame you felt then and the secrecy of it. I mean, it was very much sort of hush, hush. It was in a hospital, but it was sort of snuck in there. So it felt very nerve-wracking.
And contributing to the whole shame element. Yeah, you not being able to talk about it with
Absolutely. And not talking about it with my mom. And I just felt it would just upset her so much. And we had sort of different ideas of what, I came of age in the Sexual Freedom League. She was a person that grew up in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And she was a fairly progressive person, but not as progressive as that. And in hindsight, I'm sorry I didn't confide in her.
Did that feel very different the second time you went through that, it being legal?
Yeah, it did. I was much less scared. I was much less afraid of getting in trouble. I had much less shame about it because Planned Parenthood was so supportive. And I stayed there for several hours afterwards, and nurses brought me liquids and checked on me and asked how I was feeling and gave me a number to check in and told me to come back in a couple days, so they could make sure everything was fine. And there was none of these hideous, heinous things in the friggin' South. Sorry, South, but it's true. Making you listen, to a supposed fetal heartbeat.
What would you tell that young version of yourself looking back now, facing that decision?
Man, were you smart. I mean, I'm very grateful that my younger self had the courage. I love babies. I knew I wanted to be a mother. I knew I wanted to have a career. I knew I didn't want to be a single mother. I wanted to do that with a partner. And I knew that none of that would happen. And I'm grateful that I had the courage to know myself. And I'm grateful that I didn't let my fear rule me or shame rule me or society's judgment of me rule me. I can't believe I'm talking about this. There's something about this I just can't believe this has happened. Why aren't we putting all our energy to saving the climate, to energy, to structural economic equality, structural racism? I mean, we could be doing so much if that precedent was left alone. We're going backwards dealing with things that have already been. But you know what, kid? 80% of this country thinks it should be a woman's choice. I don't know who these people are listening to. They're listening to special fucking interests. You know, the guns are rampant in America, rampant. We are like no other industrial country in the world. The only other country that is as violent is a country involved with civil war. And you just made a law making anybody in New York State, after 100 years of not having it, able to have concealed carry. We're insane. Mental health, the Supreme Court. 6 of those justices need mental health care as far as I'm concerned. And we've got to put feet on the ground and not ever let up. You see the beauty of the day and you put your, shoulder to the grindstone, whatever the friggin' expression is, and just keep activating yourself.
Put your shoulder to the grindstone.
I don't know what that expression is. What is that expression?
As good as any
honey.
expression, Ma.
I am a beneficiary. I would not have had the life. And more important, I wouldn't have had the 2 extraordinary sons I have. They would not be here. I can't imagine my life without those particular boys. And I can hear somebody on the other side say, well, you would have had 2 other particular. No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have. I would have been a mess. I would have given them up for adoption. I would have always wondered about them. I would not have had the life I chose for myself, And that's what women have always had to fight for, and we'll just keep fighting.